Hello everyone, and welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm your instructor Daniel Shoniga, and we're going to be looking at Flexbox today. But before we go into the video, please make sure to like and subscribe on the video to get more updates about our CSS videos when we release it, right? Or even any video in particular. So let's dive straight up into the video. We're going to be talking about CSS Flex Box and what are Flexbox elements. So what is Flexbox, to be honest? So Flexbox layer module makes it easy to design flexible responsive layout structure without using a floating or a positioning. In the last in the video before this, we talked about using positioning, using set index, using floats to actually format our layout of our HTML, right? Whether from horizontal to vertical, whether from vertical to horizontal, right? So we use floating and positioning to do that. So for now, we're going to be looking at a more interesting module, which is the Flexbox, that can actually design a responsive layout for ourselves without using any of those things, because using float is actually quite tedious when you start dealing with responsiveness. But Flexbox is actually quite responsive to that. So what's the Flexbox elements? So to start using Flex, or to start using the Flexbox property, the first thing you need to do is to define a display flex on your container. So let's go ahead and do that in our VS Code. So I've already populated an HTML code here. So I have the wrapper and I have 3 columns instead of the wrapper. So now, anytime you're applying your flex property, what you're going to be doing is applying to your container. So when I mean container, I mean the wrapper that is holding the three items, right? So I'm going to come to the wrapper here and define display flex, right? So initially, this is what I have of the wrapper. This is what the wrapper is here, and it's holding these 3. So this is what I have. This tag horizontally and vertically like this. So when I've defined Flexbox and I refresh, it automatically becomes horizontal. So the default behavior of a Flex box is that it places them horizontally to each other. Alright, so now let's look at the Flex property. So these are some of the Flex properties that we use. We use the Flex direction, the Flex wrap to justify items, and the align items. So let's look at the use of these 4 items, or these 4 properties. So the Flex direction properties defines the direction in which the container wants to stack the item. Right? It defines the direction in which the container wants to stack the item, whether it is vertically or whether it's in a row format, whether it's in a column format, whether it's in a row reverse, or whether it's in a column reverse. And I'm going to show you what this means right now. So yeah, right. So I'm going to be defining the flex direction here. So just below it, I'll do flex direction. So when I say column, notice what happens. Can you see? It looks like the one we have at first when we first started, before we started using display flex, right? So this is stacked. This is a flex direction, which makes it stack vertically. That is why the value is called column, right? By default, the value of a flex direction is row. When you define a flex, it's row. That's why I set it as row. When I go back again and I define it as row, like this, right? It comes back to the row, right? So let me now show you the row reverse and column reverse as well. So if I do a row reverse, notice what happens. Okay, notice what's happening now. Can you see? Now it starts from content 1, content 2, content 3. Initially it was from 1 to 3, now it is reversed, right? So if it is a column reverse, the same thing it will do. So if I define a column reverse, right? Exactly. So 1, 2, 3. So that's actually named this 1, 2, and 3. So you can see that this is actually reversing and it is positioning properly. Alright, So that's the flex direction property. Now we're talking about the flex wrap property, and the flex wrap property specifies whether the flex item should wrap or not. And these are the properties that you can, these are some of the properties you can use. The wrap, the no wrap, the wrap reverse. Right. So let's dive into the VS Code and do this. Okay, so yeah, we're going to be defining a flex wrap property, right? So flex wrap, and then like we said, we can define it to wrap, no wrap, or wrap reverse. So let's define wrap firstly and see what we have. So initially I've defined, now I've changed my code, my HTML code to show 6 rows. So now, and they have a specific size. So when I define the flex wrap property, it wraps them the moment it reaches the end of this particular main container that is wrapping them. So that's why it wraps them. So when I define wrap now, you can see that these rows now taking the sizes that we've given them, which is 190 by 190, which is like a square, like this, and then it is wrapping when it gets to the edge, right? So you can define it as a row wrap. I'm sorry, you can define it as a wrap, or you can go ahead and define it as a wrap reverse instead, and that wraps it reversely. Can you see? So it's 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. So that's what wrap reverse does. And you can also define it as a property of no wrap, so it doesn't wrap, right? So it does not wrap. So that's the default look, right? If you don't specify flex wrap. So if you don't specify flex wrap, the default is a no wrap. Right, so we're going to look at justify content property, and it is used to align items horizontally. And the justify content can take different values, which is the start and flex start, flex end, space between, space around, and even center. So let's look at this property quickly. So let's dive into our VS Code. Alright, so I've made some changes in our HTML file. Just change this to just 3 rows, and then I've formatted some of my styling, right? So let me just demonstrate you the justify content property now. So I'm going to just clear this. I don't need this anymore for now. So I'm going to do justify content. I'm going to specify one of the one I like out of all those properties is the space between. So guessing from the name, you will see that this actually just gives it a space between the items. So I have this initially now, and when I refresh it with the space between that I've set to it, you can see that now there's an equal spacing between these 3 rows. And that's what the space between property does. And if you define a flex start property, so remember, justify content aligns things horizontally. So a flex start property, what does it do? Place them at the start. This is like the default loop. And then when you do a flex end, you put it at the end, right? So apart from space between, there's also now got space around, right? So this is what the space around does. So it's the major spaces around it, but there are also there's also some space in between it as well. So these are the space around property makes it look right. And then there's one more, which is the space evenly, and based on the name, it spaces of the items evenly from here to here to here to here. So that's how the justify content works. It aligns things horizontally. So now let's look at the next one, which is the align items. And the align items property is used to align the flex item vertically. So it's basically to align them vertically. So let me just go ahead in my VS Code, and then I change this. I'm going to be specifying an height for this height That's 100 VH. So we've talked about measurements in pixels, percentage, RAM, VH. So you can just go ahead and look at that. So I'm going to just change this. Alright, I have this now. So yeah, so we're going to talk about the align items. So what the align items we can do, I can just specify an align item property. And let's start with the center. I think that's one of the most important one, center. And when we refresh, you can see that this item now is centered vertically inside of this container. So that's how you can. This is a simple way of how you can center a div or an element vertically in a container by defining a justify content which is centered like this, and also defining an align item which is centered vertically. So if it was a flex start, this is how it looks like. So it takes in similar properties as what the justify content does, but it does the opposite, which is aligned vertically. So you can see flex start, flex end. So that takes it to the bottom if you get to the bottom, right? So talk about the center property. Yeah, talk about, and there are also some other properties that we can look at, which is the stretch value. So by default, the stretch, when you're working with the flex property, the stretch value is to fill the items, and that's the default. And if you look at it here, when I haven't specified this, it fills the whole list like this. That's the default how it looks like. So if you can change the align items to stretch, that would actually that's also the same property, right? So that the stretch is the default value of these ones. That's to fill the container by default. Okay. So let's look at some the properties that we can be applying to the child element of a flex box. And some of the properties are the order, the grow, the basis. Right? The order defines the other property specifies the order of the flex item, of how they are arranged. Right? You can customarily arrange the order of the flex item using this order property. And the way we can do that is by doing this. I'm going to just take out this. I don't need this anymore. And I just remove this as well. So on this column, on this one, I'm going to just take one of them, column and child. So I'm going to say I want the second one. Alright. So I'm going to specify order of I'm going to say the order of 3. Yes, I want it to be third row. I'm going to copy this and duplicate it and do the same for the others. Alright, I'm going to change this to 1. So this is for the first item, this is for the third item. I want to customarily change the order in which this will appear. So I'm going to say the first item should appear on the second place, the second should appear on the third place, and third should appear on the first place. Right? So when you define this order and we go back to our browser and check it, you can see that the first is now here. This one that initially the first is now second, and this one that is initially the second is now third. Right? That's how you work with your order. Alright. So we can also talk about the flex grow, and this specifies how much a flex item will grow relative to the rest of the flex items. So when we're defining this flex grow, you can define how much it will expand. I would say expand because that actually makes more sense to me. Expand relative to the rest of the items. So let's dive into our VS code now. Alright, so now I'm going to be working with the flex grow. I'm going to define the flex grow property, and then I'm just going to just give it a value. I'm going to say it's going to be 2. That's 2 times the normal size. Then when I go to my browser and I check it, right, Oh, sorry, I did not define the value of this end child. So I'm going to give it, I'm going to talk about the second one. So I want it to go 2 times. Yeah, so when I go back to my browser and refresh, you can see that now this is occupying 2 times the space it should actually occupy. Right, that's what the flex group property is. Right. So another property that I'm also talking about is the flex shrink, and this specifies how much of an item will shrink relative to the rest of the items. So I'm just going to move through this. Just define the flex shrink like this. I say I want it to shrink twice its size. Then when I check it, it has done that already. Alright, so talk about the flex basis as well. I'm just going to rush it because we're out of time. Initially, I'm to spend 15 minutes. Right? So the flex basis property specifies the initial length of a flex item. So this specifies the initial length of a flex item, and in this way you can actually specify the width you want the flex item to be, irrespective of what you set for the rest. So I'm going to find the flex basis, and I'll say I want the width to be 300 pixels. Remember, I specified the width of 240 now. So when I go to my browser and refresh it, the width is a bit bigger, right? It's a bit bigger than all the other ones, and that is the 300 pixel I specified. So the last thing you can look at is the flex property, and it is the shorter property that is used for flex group, flex shrink, and flex basis properties. So when we go to look at the flex property now, I'm going to just, for this thing one, I'm just going to change this to flex. I've declared everything, but let me just write everything at once by using the flex property. Right, and then I'll do, this says for flex group, which is 0, I'm going to specify 0, I don't want it to grow. Flex basis 0, I don't want down to shrink. Sorry, flex group, flex shrink, I do not want it to shrink. So flex basis, I'll say I want it to be 400 pixels. So this is flex basis, so it's like a shorthand for writing 3 of them at once. Alright, so when I refresh, you can see this just increases to the particular size I specified it to be. Right, so this these are the things you need to know about flex. Right, understanding how you can flex, the directions in which you can flex, and how you want the items to be, whether you want it to be wrapped or whether you want it to not wrap, and also whether you want an item to scale up irrespective of the size of the rest. Right, those are some of the things you need to understand about the flex property. Right, so I want you guys to go ahead and take what I've taught today, the concepts of what I've taught you about flex, and try to use it to apply to a real life concept, right? To do something and see that it is actually more exciting than we have put it, right? So thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure to like if you found this video very helpful to you, and also subscribe if you want to be seeing more of these videos in the future, right? Please have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video.